Halloween is a night that stirs the imagination, where the boundary between reality and the supernatural seems to thin. But for some, Halloween isn't just about costumes and haunted houses. It's a time when real-life horrors take place, leaving deep scars and terrifying memories that never fade. The stories in this collection are all true, recounting real events that unfolded on or around Halloween. Prepare yourself for a chill down your spine as you dive into these 3 disturbing true Halloween horror stories. Story 1: The Halloween Murder of 1974. One of the most chilling and tragic Halloween stories comes from the small town of Deer Park, Texas, in 1974. It's a horrifying reminder that even the most innocent of holidays can harbor unspeakable evil. On Halloween night that year, a young boy named Timothy O'Brien was eagerly preparing for a night of trick-or-treating with his father. Timothy, just 8 years old, had picked out a costume and was excited to join the other neighborhood children in collecting candy. But little did he know, this Halloween would be his last. Timothy and his father, Ronald O'Brien, had made their way to a house in their neighborhood. The house, which belonged to a man named Cortlandt, later identified as a local optician, was one that the O'Briens knew. The man, who had been handing out candy, allegedly gave Timothy a pixie sticks, a sugary treat that is a tube of flavored powder. The man, who was later identified as a convicted killer, handed out the candy to several children, including Timothy. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. But later that night, after returning home, Timothy began to feel sick. His father, worried but unaware of what had happened, put him to bed, hoping it was just a stomach ache. Within hours, Timothy was dead. His stomach had been found to contain cyanide, a highly toxic poison, and it was soon clear that his death was not an accident. As the investigation progressed, authorities discovered that Timothy's father, Ronald, had been the one who poisoned the candy. Ronald O'Brien had murdered his own son, likely as part of an elaborate scheme to claim life insurance money. He had also attempted to poison several other children, though they were lucky enough not to consume the tainted candy. The Halloween murder rocked the community, and the case gained national attention. It was later revealed that Ronald had a history of financial problems and had hoped to benefit from his son's death by taking out a life insurance policy in Timothy's name. Ronald was arrested, convicted of capital murder, and sentenced to death. On March 31, 1984, he was executed by lethal injection. Timothy O'Brien's death became a chilling reminder that not all candy on Halloween is safe, and that not all monsters wear masks. It is because of this that many communities began to adopt more rigorous safety measures, such as inspecting candy for tampering before children eat it. Story 2: The Halloween Poisoning of 1970. The Case of the Candyman. While Ronald O'Brien's actions on Halloween night of 1974 may be the most infamous Halloween-related poisoning in history, there are other stories that also highlight the dangers lurking behind seemingly innocent Halloween traditions. One such story occurred a few years earlier, in 1970, and centers around the disturbing actions of a man known as the Candyman. The Candyman was a man named Robert Bob Morris Coombs, a father living in California. Coombs had a history of mental instability, and though he had no prior criminal record, his actions on Halloween night would make him notorious for years to come. On October 31, 1970, Coombs, eager to get attention for reasons that were never fully understood, decided to commit a shocking and horrendous act. He poisoned a batch of Halloween candy that he was preparing to hand out to trick-or-treaters in his neighborhood. The candy was laced with strychnine, a deadly poison that causes convulsions and death by asphyxiation. The poisoned candy was given out to several children in the neighborhood. But Coombs' plot went awry when one of the children, a 9-year-old girl, started feeling the effects of the poisoning shortly after consuming a piece of the candy. Her parents rushed her to the hospital, where she was treated for poisoning. Fortunately, she survived, but others were not so lucky. 2 children who had consumed the candy, siblings ages 6 and 4, died from the poison, making the night one of the most terrifying and deadly Halloween events in the country's history. Though the Candyman's true identity was initially difficult to trace, investigators soon discovered that the poisoned candy had come from Coombs' house. He was arrested and later convicted for the murders of the two children. His motives were never entirely clear, but some speculated that he may have been trying to achieve notoriety, or perhaps attempting to get revenge on the community. Ultimately, Coombs was sentenced to death, and though his execution was delayed for many years, he eventually died in prison in 1989. The Candyman case helped solidify the fear that some Halloween candy could be tampered with, and the term Halloween sadism was coined to describe the malicious intent behind poisoning trick-or-treaters. The incident also led to increased awareness and safety measures surrounding the inspection of Halloween candy, a practice that remains common today. Story 3: The Halloween Haunted House That Turned into a Real Nightmare. Not all horrors on Halloween come in the form of candy or murderers in the dark. Sometimes, the terror comes from a place that's meant to be fun and harmless. In the fall of 2000, in the small town of Anoka, Minnesota, a Halloween event designed to delight quickly turned into a real-life nightmare for a group of unsuspecting participants. Anoka is known as the Halloween capital of the world, and each year the town hosts an elaborate haunted house attraction. The haunted hallways had been a local tradition for years and was something that children and adults alike looked forward to. However, that year, something went horribly wrong. The haunted house was designed to immerse visitors in an experience that was meant to thrill and frighten. Actors were dressed in spooky costumes, and the setting was filled with creepy effects. From fake blood to strobe lights. It was all for fun until it wasn't. One of the staff members, a man in his mid-30s, had a history of mental health issues and had been struggling with his personal life for several months leading up to the event. On the night of October 30th, he became increasingly erratic during the haunted house experience. As the visitors were led through the house, the actor whose role was to scare them began to act uncomfortably aggressive. He started targeting specific individuals in a way that felt different from the normal scripted scares. The actor's behavior escalated when, in the midst of a particularly intense moment, he became physically violent. He pushed several patrons, yelling at them in a manic state, telling them to leave this place now. One visitor, a woman in her late 20s, was shoved so violently that she fell to the floor and injured her back. She screamed for help, but the actor seemed oblivious to the danger. At that point, panic set in. Visitors began running toward the exit, but the actor, now completely unhinged, blocked the door and began acting out in an increasingly violent manner, threatening to hurt anyone who tried to escape. The staff, realizing that something had gone horribly wrong, rushed to subdue him. But by the time they managed to get control, the actor had already caused significant harm to several people. Thankfully, no one was killed, but the haunting experience left deep scars on those who were involved. The event was shut down immediately, and the actor was arrested. Investigators later discovered that he had been self-medicating for his mental health struggles, and the violent outburst had been exacerbated by substance abuse. While this incident didn't involve a death, it was a harrowing reminder of the very real dangers that can arise when a seemingly harmless Halloween event takes a dark turn.